Let's be honest, nobody knows where the Bitcoin price will go. We are all just guessing. We try to draw parallels from the past. We're trying to find structure in the data. And while we can't be certain about anything, there are some good arguments that we might have already bottomed in Bitcoin. One of the best arguments is over here. It's the weekly RSI. What we see at the top, that's the Bitcoin price. What we see at the bottom is the weekly relative strength indicator. And in the past, when we went into this oversold territory, we tended to also bottom out in the Bitcoin price. And we have just hit a low in the weekly RSI again. And so there are always those two competing forces. There's the valuation of an asset and there's the current momentum. If momentum is negative, if the trend is currently bearish, it's very hard to turn this around. But when the valuations are cheap enough, people might buy against the momentum. Now the weekly RSI is one thing, but then we've also got this curved line over here. This is nothing scientific. It's just coincidentally a very nice support over the different bear markets. And that line does not tell the story that we've already bottomed out. That line tells us that we could potentially fall by another 45% from here, all the way down to $36,000 in Bitcoin. And so we've got two competing narratives here. So let's have a look at how the capital is flowing. Let's have a look at the stablecoin market cap. This used to be a pretty good indication whether or not we have bottomed out or if we potentially fall further. This here is the stablecoin market cap over the last few months. It appears as if money is still flowing into the system. It's still going up, not as quickly anymore as it used to, but in general this seems to be positive. The reason why I like to look at the stablecoin market cap is because it tells us a story whether or not people are putting money into the system. So if people convert their fiat currency into stablecoins, or if people net withdraw from the crypto ecosystem. If people withdraw, if they convert their stablecoins into fiat currency, then stablecoins get burnt, then this chart is going down. Now the growth rate has slowed down a lot, and I'm not so sure if that growth is new deposits or if it's just interest. Because when we look at the stablecoin market cap relative to the US money supply, that is not growing since October of last year. Measured in US dollars, we are still slightly going up, but relative to the money supply, we are not. Before October of 2025, we tended to go up much faster in the stablecoin market cap relative to the monetary base. And have a look at what happened with the cryptocurrency market cap excluding the stablecoins. It peaked exactly at the moment when the inflows stopped. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all the altcoins combined and excluding the stablecoins, that went down by almost 50% since the inflows stopped. I like to look at the stablecoin market cap because it has very little volatility. It tends to show the current trend very clearly. That's different to crypto prices. Crypto prices are much more volatile, they fluctuate much more. Figuring out where we currently are in the trend is harder. This here is when we had the Terra Luna collapse, so when the UST stablecoin depegged. People withdrew their money from crypto and Bitcoin as a result went down. Then we had a consolidation phase from December of 2022 to September of 2023. Starting in October of 2023, we got the inflows again. And just have a look at how this correlates with the Bitcoin price. With the consolidation, we already saw a slight appreciation, but really the main profit was made once we saw clear inflows. Bitcoin appreciated by 350%, while the stablecoin market cap during the same time frame grew by 130%. So there's a leverage effect here, right? $1 invested in the crypto ecosystem, once we buy a risk on asset, tends to push up market caps more than by $1. Once the prevailing momentum stops, we tend to see a turnaround in the price movements. So once the outflows stop, we tend to see rising prices. Once the inflows stop, we tend to see falling prices. And so that then begs the question, are we really cheap enough in Bitcoin already? Or is rather this curved line prevailing? And are we going all the way down below 40K? Now, I believe there are two major drivers for crypto prices. There's the in and outflows out of the entire system, and those are quite long-term cycles. That's the stablecoin market cap. But then there's also swapping activity, trading activity within crypto. So there might be a lot of capital in the crypto market, but when everybody is selling Bitcoin, is selling Ethereum, is selling the altcoins for the stablecoins, then prices come down. So it also depends on what's currently the short-term outlook. How much are people currently risk on or risk off? How much of a portfolio on average is currently in stablecoins versus risk on assets? And that's why I find the stablecoin dominance very useful. So how much percent of all of crypto is currently in stablecoins? That's what we are seeing in this chart. When the stablecoin dominance is high, when it's close to 16%, then crypto prices tend to be low. When the stablecoin dominance is low though, when everybody has invested their stablecoins and when the market is risk on, then prices tend to be high. When the stablecoin dominance goes up, prices go down. When the stablecoin dominance goes down, prices go up. So we've got an inverse correlation here. And this chart would imply that maybe we have to wait until we hit the 16% mark in the stablecoin dominance again. That's when in the past we tended to bottom out. We are currently at 12.6%. Now, how much could we fall in case the stablecoin dominance goes up like this? Let's have a look at the data point in the past. So here in August of 2022, we were at very similar stablecoin dominance marks, and then we went all the way up to 16%. How much did Bitcoin fall while the stablecoin dominance appreciated this way? And let's take the same two data points and let's have a look at the crypto market cap excluding the stablecoins. It went down by roughly 27%. If the stablecoin dominance was to hit 16%, then Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, etc. should go down by around 27%. So let's have a look at our long-term Bitcoin chart again and see where this brings us. Going all the way down to the white line, that implies a drop below 40K. Going 27% down though, that would bring us to a bear market bottom of $48,000. And I think that's a pretty realistic scenario. It's not too pessimistic, it's not Bitcoin going to zero, but it's also not too optimistic that we say we're going to get new all-time highs when at the same time no money is flowing into the system. If the stablecoin market cap is stable and if no money gets into the system, how can we hit new all-time highs? Or how would the current momentum turn around? Valuations first need to be low enough. The market has to be spooked enough. The stablecoin dominance needs to be high enough. And that could be slightly below 50K. This also aligns with the average cost basis, the realized price. In the past, we tended to fall below the average cost basis in the market. That's when the bear market stopped. Currently, that average cost basis is at 54K. Now that's above the 48K over here, but that's expected because we fell below the realized price. We didn't directly bounce at the realized price. I also like to show this chart here, the net unrealized profit and loss. How much is the average Bitcoin investor currently in profit versus in loss? And currently the average investor is still 18% in profit. If we were to fall by 27, 28%, then the average investor would be 10% in losses. And I think that's a pretty good price target. Volatility in Bitcoin over time is declining, both on the upside, but also on the downside. So the net unrealized gains tend to decline from cycle to cycle, but so do the losses. So this time we're probably not going to draw down as much as we did in the prior cycle. So a 10% net unrealized loss, I think, is quite reasonable. This year is 50%. That's roughly a 10% drop below the zero line. Again, nobody knows where the Bitcoin price is going. We all just try to find patterns. We try to figure out how did the price move in the past and draw conclusions for the future. Will this all hold? Will we actually bottom out at around 50K? I don't know. But I think once we approach that price level, it definitely makes sense to make at least first purchases and start allocating towards Bitcoin. And that's then a purchase against the momentum, even if we don't have any inflows yet, even if that means that we might fall a bit further due to current momentum. If valuations are low enough, the risk versus the potential reward is definitely worth it. And so that's how I try to navigate this. Even though I don't know what the outcome of this game will be, Try to figure out what's my downside risk, what's my upside potential, and if the ratio is good enough, then I'm taking that bet of uncertainty. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to give it a like, it will help the channel grow. Feel free to also forward this to your friend in case your friend's also interested in this topic. You can also subscribe, I publish videos regularly on this channel. Looking very much forward to seeing you next time on YouTube. Feel free to also check out the premium membership. This is where I share my own investments and my own trades. Link to premium is over here. Just click on that. You will come to the website. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Cheers.